My name is Timothy Collins, and I was born in County Cork, Ireland in 1944. At the age of 8, my father moved us to the United States and we settled in Wabash, Indiana, where my father worked for the railroad. After graduating from high school, I actually taught high school for 4 years, and then at the age of 20, I decided to move west to Montana to make my fortune. Unfortunately, the wagon train was attacked several times by Indians, so we were rerouted to Denver. Well, I tried prospecting in the Denver area for a few months, but that didn't turn out very fruitful. So I decided to continue my quest on to Montana, and I ended up in Bannack, Montana, but had about the same amount of luck there. So I moved to Virginia City, eventually to Helena, to Last Chance Gulch, but it was finally at Confederate Gulch where I found a rich lead. And over the time of the mining of that area, I set up the claims, and believe it or not, that area actually produced about $10 million worth of gold. Unfortunately, it wasn't all mine, but that was within a half-a-mile radius of my original claim. So it was a very productive gold mine. So in 1869, I was named a territorial legislator, and then I spent 2 years in the Senate. And after that time, I decided the legal practice was my route to some fame. So I set up and took the bar exam and passed, and I set up a lucrative legal practice, which actually led me to the White Sulphur Springs area, where I met my wife. Now, her father, Jonas Higgins, was a merchant at the Diamond City, which was a boom town for the Confederate miners. And so eventually I did marry Lavinia in 1874. 2 years later, we had our first child, Molly, and we followed that up within the next 10 years with 3 other children, being Dodie, Walter, and Timothy Jr. After we were married, we decided that we wanted to move on to Fort Benton, Montana. And there in Fort Benton, I helped establish the first bank of North Montana. I was also appointed to Montana's first constitutional convention in 1884. That same year, we again decided to uproot the family and we moved to Great Falls, where we could see great promise with the young city. I built the first building on Central Avenue, and with the help of other folks, set up the first business block on Central Avenue, where I remained in practice for several years. Also, I was the vice president of the Great Falls to Canada Railroad, and I was vice president of the Galt Coal Company. And my wife and I had a sheep farm. It was called the Severance Company. From there, after serving as bank president for the First National Bank of Great Falls, I was the president of the First National Bank of Nyhart, Montana, and then the president of the bank in Sand Coulee. So after this time, I held several state offices, but my wife and I decided we should build a home because we were outgrowing our family. So we built our first home at the corner of 14th Street and 4th Avenue North, and we were prepared to move in on New Year's Day. Unfortunately, the night before, the house burned to the ground. Apparently what took place is we had a worker in the home, and he was applying lacquer to the woodwork on the trim and also the fireplace mantle, and he left a window sash open in the parlor so that the house could properly ventilate. Well, a dastardly rogue man entered the house through the open window and set the house ablaze. This, of course, was a tragic loss for me and my family. So we took a risk, and with the $4,000 we received in the settlement, we moved west of the Missouri River to the yet untamed West Great Falls. And we built what is known today as the Collins Mansion, which probably some of you have heard about. And so we moved into the Collins Mansion in 1891. Fortunately, I was only able to enjoy the home for 17 years as I passed away from creeping paralysis in 1908. My wife continued to live in the home for some time, actually 9 years. Being a widow and having all the children now raised and gone from Great Falls, she decided to sell the home. It was a hard decision, but being a single person living in a 7,000 square foot mansion was too much for her to handle. 7 years after that, the Great Falls County decided it would be an ideal location for the proposed city-county hospital. And so the county met with the architect and they met with the folks from Helena, and they did all agree that this would be an ideal location for a renovation of our home to a hospital. Well, fortunately for our house, neighbors didn't really agree with this plan, and they actually filed a lawsuit which shut down the idea of our home becoming a hospital. So the home continued to be home to several other things as well through the years, and probably most notably a bed and breakfast since the 90s. So it's been a great tribute to the city of Great Falls and as well as the state of Montana. And although it's not a bed and breakfast anymore, the home is still able to be shared and kept in much of its original grandeur. Now I'm going to step out of my role as Timothy Collins, who is laid to rest back behind me here, and I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Mike Schmidt. I'm from the Bozeman area, and my wife Sherry is from a ranch south of Big Sandy in the Bear Paw Mountains. And we actually bought the Collins Mansion 10 years ago, and almost to this date is the day we moved into the home. And I tell you what, when we first moved in, our eyes got wider and wider, and our goal was to restore the home as much as possible. So after being a bed and breakfast since the mid-90s, it was well used, and we needed to just make it a home again. And so we've spent the last 10 years restoring it to as much as original state as possible, and it is a beautiful home. So again, it's not a bed and breakfast, but we still, I should say, my wife still enjoys giving tours, as I'm kind of the outside guy. Enjoys giving tours and then helping enjoy with other people all of the artifacts that are in the home, much from the thousands of Chinese immigrants that came to Montana, and also the Native American tribes that are in Montana as well. So someday we've talked about having Christmas tours as well. So I sure appreciate all of you coming today. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the tour.